Ebling here with Lindsay Huddleston at Spartan Stadium after Arizona State's stunning 10-7 win over Michigan State. Game that had so many twists and turns, but in the end, too many Michigan State mistakes.
Yeah, it was something, between the time that we came from the press box down onto the field, it seemed like it was two different games, two different worlds, and just the momentum was just sucked out of the Michigan State fandom as well as the players.
Two serious operational errors. Mark D'Antonio's staff not saving a timeout for the final possession, burning two of them with the clock stopped, and then coming out, didn't know whether they were going to take a shot at the end zone, they were going to get the field goal team on, they wind up with 12 men on the field, injuries to the offensive line, and nobody knew what to do.
And speaking of field goals, we saw not once, not twice, but 3 missed field goals, something that you almost never expect. But as you say, those things happen. They did happen tonight.
And Matt Coughlin was perfect coming into this game. 7 for 7 tonight. Missed a long one, 47 yards, then missed a short one. And don't think the snap was good on that one. That was a little low. Don't know if it was or not on the one at the end that was pull hooked. But we said after the first game, when Ryan Armour went out, that the loss of a long snapper will cost you a game. And it cost Michigan State this game, but there were so many other errors, Lindsay. We talked about the coaching mistakes. We talked about the offense. Brian Lewerke blames himself for the fumble that got away. Michigan State with the penalties on a lot of big gains. Outgained Arizona State 404 to 216, but would have had more than 500 yards if it just cleaned up its game. And then the defense doesn't get a takeaway, and with a 7-3 lead, just has to protect 75 yards of turf. I'm looking down here. That's a long way.
It's a long way.
But Jaden Daniels able to scramble out on 4th and 13, able to get that ball into the end zone. And Michigan State, as good a defense as it had, couldn't make the play it needed.
Yeah. All right, are you buying or selling this? I talked to players after the game, and there were 3 events I brought up. I brought up them being under such stress and finally having a great game against Western. I also brought up the idea of this looming historic event to be able to get 110 victories for Coach D'Antonio, and also them going up against a team, Arizona State, that they lost to in a similar fashion. Those 3 events put together, do you think those had a very impactful way on how this game turned out?
Well, you're Mr. Psychology. Do you think they did?
I think it's something to be said about that. I think it's something to be said about the emotional high these guys have been on. And there's so many unique factors that go into this. And if they don't have a mental performance plan, not just a rah-rah, not just a great speech, but a way they can center themselves, stay focused, and not let all of these events come down on them at once, which I think is what part of what happened here.
Maybe it was focus, certainly a lack of execution. Michigan State had so many chances to win that game. Big punt return by Cody White, and there's a holding penalty 20 yards away from the play. There was another shot where there was a hands to the face on what would have been a takeaway. And Kenny Willekes forcing that fumble. But Michigan State, you could just tell early on something was wrong. And they kept letting Arizona State hang in there. And every time Arizona State got a little bit more confident and a little bit more confident. And when they took the ball the length of the field, they hit that long one over Josh Butler to the 25-yard line. I said, I think Arizona State's going to score. Michigan State's going to have to come back and get a field goal here. But they didn't have the timeouts left to do that. And maybe they should have taken a shot. They had 11 seconds to go. That's a long time. You can take a play to the end zone. Just tell your quarterback, don't get sacked. And tell your receivers, be sure you get in the end zone or out of bounds. You cannot be tackled in the field of play. 11 seconds is a long time. It's a long time now for Michigan State to think about this game as they get ready for Northwestern.
It is. I happened to walk out of the tunnel as we were leaving right next to Coach Herman Edwards. Got to talk to him, but more so to observe him. So stoic, so in the moment, not an arrogant attitude about, hey, I just beat these guys. So you wonder how much him as a coach goes into a team holding on to the very last second of the game.
I'm sure it helped. He's a pro. He's been in the NFL. He was a successful head coach there. And was a longtime player at the highest level. So he's seen just about everything. But the crowd here was ready for a celebration, for a coronation of Mark D'Antonio passing Duffy Daugherty. Now, the fans have to get back up by next week. The players have to get back up, and the coaches know they have to be up because everyone's going to follow their lead. Michigan State at Northwestern Team has beaten Michigan State 3 straight times. Spartans going into Evanston now, and they are banged up. The thing that a lot of people don't want to hear about, they say it's an excuse. I think it's an explanation. When you've had 3 left tackles,
Right.
you're talking about Cole Chewins, A.J. Arcuri, and Kevin Jarvis down. You've got your snapper down. They've had some other problems, but good teams overcome those things.
Well, they have to. It's always about the next man up, but I think it's something to be said. Many people thought going into Evanston next week, this team would be, undefeated. But now we're talking about getting over a loss. What kind of implications it's going to have for the future part of the season with taking a loss so early to a team like Arizona State?
Well, it's a non-conference game. Last year, Northwestern lost all 3 non-conference games and won the West Division and played Ohio State and Indy for 3 quarters, about as well as you can. So starts over. Michigan State in 2013 lost a non-conference game at Notre Dame. Came back and ran the table in the Big Ten and won every game by 10 points. But 10 points is more than this team's been able to score offensively in 2 of the 3 games.
Yeah.
So Michigan State's got a lot of work to do, and it's got to start quick.
Will we keep hearing the name Brad Salem again and again? I mean, this offense didn't even score until, the final part of the game. Does it bring that conversation back up again?
No, I think Brad Salem's offense is very different from the one we saw at the end of last year that couldn't get 100 yards against Michigan. This one got 404 yards, and I thought they moved the ball pretty well, but so many key execution errors. Now, if you want to criticize Brad Salem for that, were there play calls you'd want to have over? Yeah, if you have enough plays in a game, you're always going to have some you'd like to have back. Nobody's going to call a perfect game. But I thought there were some things that worked. Just didn't get the points on the board. Make a couple of those field goals, we're not having this discussion.
Talk about that a little bit more, the half glass, half full part, the good things that we can take from this, the good things that the coach can put on the board to say, hey, I'm proud of you for this.
Well, it's still a loss. A loss is a loss. And you can't excuse that. Feel confident that right now, they're a better team than they were a year ago at this point. And that defense isn't going anywhere, although it let the team down on that last series. And I don't know how they gave up 75 yards. I don't know how they let the quarterback out of the box on that 4th and 14, 13 scramble. And I don't know how they played the whole game without getting a takeaway. But they've got to turn that around, and they've got 7 days to get ready, less than that, for the Wildcats.
Right. One thing I noticed, those penalties kind of reared their ugly head again. I know they kind of go back and forth. A lot of penalties in one game.
They went from 14 to 2 to 10.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we're back at that. So what do you think those penalties are a representation of?
Execution. That's all I can tell you. And I think back to when they asked John McKay, whose team was 0-14, what do you think of your team's execution? He said, I'm in favor of it. I think about this.
Right.
I think Michigan State has got to play clean football. But they've also got to figure out something on the left side of the offensive line, because they're going to get absolutely slaughtered when they play Ohio State with Chase Young coming around that corner. And there are going to be some other teams that take advantage of that if they can't get somebody back in that spot. They've already lost a player or 2 for the season. They need to get some things cleaned up here, as we said, and they need to get ready to go and start Big Ten play 0-0.
Yep. This is our Press Pass preview. So what can you talk about that's going to be coming up soon on Press Pass?
Well, we're going to have Jimmy Keaton, Arizona State letterman. He was a baseball and football letterman in Tempe. He's going to be on the panel with us, along with Matt Charbonneau and Stephen Brooks. So we're going to break this down. We don't have Michigan to talk about much this week.
Right.
But we do have the Detroit Lions, and they are in action tomorrow against the Chargers. So catch us at 11 o'clock tomorrow night, Fox 47, and we'll break it all down for you.
It's going to be great.